Hello everyone and welcome back to The Rise of Kyoshi. Now before I get into the chapter, I am running a Q&A on my Instagram. So for those who don't know my Instagram, it's Cory underscore cat 93. And on my Twitter, there's another poll on there as well if you don't have Instagram. At Cory PowerCat at Cheyenne. I'm running another poll on there too. Just ask questions and I'll answer them in the video. So if you do get on Twitter, look for the profile picture that has me with a pair of angel wings behind me, because there are two profiles of Cory PowerCat that I both own, but one of them got shut down. So there's that. So without further ado, sorry, which let's read chapter 2, 9 years later. To Kyoshi, it was very clear. This was a hostage situation. Silence was the key to making it through to the other side, waiting with complete and total passivity. Neutral Jing. Kyoshi walked calmly down the path, through the fallow field, ignoring the cover grass that leaned over and tickled her ankles, the sweat beading on her forehead that stung her eyes. She kept quiet and pretended that the three people who'd fallen beside her like muggers in the alley weren't a threat. So, like I was telling the others, my mom and dad think we'll have dredged the Peakside canals earlier this year, Ioma said, drawing out the mom and dad intentionally, dangling what Kyoshi lacked in front of her. She crooked her hands into the crowding bridge position, while slamming her feet into the ground with solid whumps. One of the terraces collapsed in the last storm. Above them, floating high out of reach, was the last precious jar of pickled spicy kelp that the entire village would see this year. The one that Kyoshi had been charged with delivering to Jianzu's mansion. The one that Ioma had earthbent out of Kyoshi's hands and was now promising to drop at any second. The large clay vessel bobbed up and down, sloshing the brine against the wax paper seal. Kyoshi had to stifle a yelp every time the jar lurched against the limits of Ioma's control. No noise. Wait it out. Don't give them anything to latch onto. Talking will only make it worse. She doesn't care, Susie said. Precious servant girl doesn't give a lick about farming matters. She's got her cushy job in the fancy house. She's too good to get her hands dirty. Won't step in a boat, neither, Jay said. In lieu of elaborating further, he spat at the ground, nearly missing Kyoshi's heels. Ioma never needed a reason to torment Kyoshi, but as for the others, genuine resentment worked just fine. It was true that Kyoshi spent her days under the roof of the powerful sage instead of breaking her nails against field stones. She would certainly never risk the choppy waters of the strait in pursuit of a catch. But what Jay and Susie conveniently neglected was that every plot of arable land near the village and every seaworthy boat down at the docks belonged to a family. Mothers and fathers, as Ioma was so fond of saying, passed along their trade through dollars and cents in an unbroken line, which meant there was no room for an outsider to inherit any means to survive. If it had been for Kelsang and Jianzu, Kyoshi would have starved in the streets, right in front of everyone's noses. Hypocrites. Kyoshi pressed her tongue against the roof of her mouth as hard as she could. Today was not going to be the day. Someday, maybe, but not today. Lay off her, Ioma said, shifting her stance into dividing bridge. I hear that being a serving girl is hard work. That's why we're helping with deliveries, isn't that right, Kyoshi? For emphasis, she threaded the jar through a narrow gap in the branches of an overhanging tree. A reminder of who was in control here. Kyoshi shuddered as the vessel dove toward the ground, like a hawk before swooping back up to safety. Just a little farther, she said as the path took a sharp turn around the hillside. A few more silent, wordless steps until, there, they had arrived at last, the Avatar's estate in all its glory. The mansion of Master Jianzu, built to house the savior of the world, was designed in the image of a miniature city. A high wall ran in a perfect square around the grounds, with a division in the middle to separate the austere training grounds from the more vibrant living quarters. Each section had its own imposing south-facing gatehouse that was larger than Yokai Meeting Hall. The massive iron-studded doors of the residential gate were flung open, offering a small windowed glimpse of the elaborate topiary inside. A herd of placid goat dogs grazed over the lawn, cropping the grass to an even length. Foreign elements had been carefully integrated into the design of the complex, which meant that the gilded dragons chased carved polar orcas around the edges of the walls. The placement of the Earth Kingdom style roof tiles cleverly matched air nomad numerology principles. Authentic dyes and paints had been imported from all around the world, ensuring that the colors of all four nations were on full, equitable display. When Jianzu had bought the land, he had explained to the village elders that Yokai was an ideal spot to settle down and educate the Avatar. A quiet, safe place, away from the outlaw-ravaged lands deeper in the Earth Kingdom, and close enough to both the Southern Air Temple and Southern Water Tribe. The villagers had been happy enough to take his gold back then, but after the matter went up, they grumbled that it was an eyesore, an alien structure that had sprouted overnight from the native soil. To Kyoshi, it was the most beautiful sight she could ever imagine. It was a home. Behind her, Susie sniffed in disdain. I don't know. I don't know what our parents were thinking selling these fields to Ganginese. Kyoshi's lips went tight. Master Jianzu was indeed from the Ganjin tribe up in the north, but it was the way Susie had said it. Maybe they knew they had land. Maybe the sorry. Maybe they knew that the land was as worthless and as unproductive as their children. Kyoshi muttered under her breath. The others stopped walking and stared at her. Whoops, whoops, she said. Yeah, a bit too loud, hadn't she? Jay and Susie balled their fists. It dawned on them that what they could do why Aoma and Kyoshi were helpless. It had been years since any of the village kids could get in with reach of her, but the day was a special occasion, wasn't it? Maybe a few bruises in remembrance of old times. Kyoshi steeled herself for the first blow, rising on her toes in the hope that she could at least keep her face out of the fray, so only May wouldn't notice. A few punches and kicks and they'd leave her in peace. Really, it was her own fault for letting her mask slip. What do you think you're doing? A familiar voice snarled. Kyoshi's grimaced and opened her eyes. Peace was no longer an option because now Ranji was here. Ranji must have seen them from afar and stalked across the entire great lawn unnoticed, or lain in ambush for them all night, or dropped out of a tree like a webbed leopard. Kyoshi wouldn't have put any of those feats past the military-trained firebender. Jay and Susie backed away, trying to swallow their hostile intent like children stuffing stolen candy into their mouths. It occurred to Kyoshi that this might have been the first time they'd ever seen a member of the Fire Nation up close, let alone one as intimidating as Ranji. In her formatting armor, the color of onyx and dried blood, she could have been a vengeful spirit come to cleanse a battlefield of the living. Ioma rather impressively held her ground. The Avatar's bodyguard, she said, with a faint smile. I thought you weren't supposed to leave this side. Aren't you slacking off? She glanced to left and right. Or is he here somewhere? Ranji looked at Ioma like she was a wall of foulness the firebender had stepped in during the walkover. You're not authorized to be on these grounds, she said in her charred rasp. She pointed upward at the jar of kelp, nor to lay your hands on the Avatar's property, or what cost his household staff, for the matter. Kyoshi noticed she personally landed a distant third in that list of considerations. Ioma tried to play it cool. This container is enormous, she said, shrugging to emphasize her still ongoing feat of elemental control. It would take 2 grown men to lift it without earthbending. Kyoshi asked us to help her bring it inside the house, right? She gave Kyoshi a radiant smile. One that said, tell on me and I'll kill you. Kyoshi had seen that expression before countless times when they were younger, whenever a helpless adult blundered into them playing around. Kyoshi badly scraped up Aoma with a rock in her hand, but today she was off her game. Her normally flawless acting had a plaintive, genuine tone to it. Kyoshi suddenly understood what was going on. Ioma really did want to help her with her delivery. She wanted to be invited inside the mansion and to see the Avatar up close, like Kyoshi got to do every day. She was jealous. A feeling akin to pity settled in Kyoshi's throat. It wasn't strong enough to hold Ranji back from doing her thing, though. The firebender stepped forward, her fine jawline hardened, and her dark bronze eyes danced with aggression. The air around her body rippled like a living mirage, making the strands of jet black hair that escaped her top knot float upward in the heat. Put the jar down, walk away, and don't come back, she said. Unless you want to know what the ashes of your eyebrows smelt like. Ioma's expression crumbled. She'd blundered into a predator with much larger fangs. And unlike the adults of the village, no amount of charm or misdirection would work on Ranji. But that didn't mean a parting shot was out of question. Sure, she said. Thought you'd never ask. With a fling of her hands, the jar rocketed straight up into the air and past the treetops. You better find someone who's authorized to catch that. She bellowed down the path with Susie and Jay close behind. You little... Ranji made to go after them, fists reflectively cocked to serve a helping of flaming pain. But she checked herself. Fiery vengeance would have to wait. She shook her hand out and peered up at the rapidly shrinking jar. Ayuma had thrown it really hard. No one could claim the girl wasn't talented. Ranji elbowed Kyoshi sharply in the side. Catch it, she said. Use earthbending and catch it. I can't, Kyoshi said, quavering with dismay. Her poor doomed charge reached the apex of its flight, and only May was going to be furious. A disaster of this magnitude might get back to Master Jianzu. Her pay would get cut, or she'd be fired outright. Ranji hadn't given up on her. What do you mean you can't? The staff ledgers have you listed as Earthbender. Catch it! It's not that simple. It's not that simple. Yes, Kyoshi was technically a bender, but Ranji didn't know about her little problem. Do the thing with your hands like she did. Ranji formed the dual claws of Crowley Bridge if the only missing component were a crude visual reminder by a bender who wielded a different element entirely. Look out! Kyoshi screamed. She threw herself over Ranji, shooting the small girl with her body from the plummeting missile. They fell to the ground, intertwined. No impact came. No deadly shards of ceramic or explosion of pickling liquid. Get off me, you oaf! Ranji muttered. She hammered her fist against Kyoshi's protective embrace, a bird beating its wings against the cage. Kyoshi got to her knees and saw that her face, head, and ears were nearly as red as her armor. She helped Ranji to her feet. The jar floated next to them, at waist high above the ground. Under Ioma's control, it had wavered and trembled, following her natural patterns of breathing and involuntary motions. Then it was completely still in the air, as if it had been placed on a sturdy iron pedestal. The pebbles in the dusty path trembled. They began to move and bounce in front of Koshi's feet, directed by unseen power from below, like they had been scattered across the surface of a beating drum. They marched in seemingly random directions, little drunken soldiers, till they came to a rest in a formation that spelled a message. You're welcome. Kyoshi's head jerked up, and she squinted at the distant mansion. There was only one person she knew who could manage this feat. The pebbles began their dance again, settling into words much faster this time. This is Yun, by the way. You know, Avatar Yun. As if it could have been anyone else, Kyoshi couldn't spot where Yun was watching them, but she could imagine the playful, teasing smirk on his handsome face, as he performed yet another outstanding act of bending like it was no big deal, charming the rocks into complete submission. She'd never heard of anyone using Earth to communicate legibly at a distance. Yun was lucky. He wasn't an air nomad, or else the stunt would have gotten him tattooed in celebration for inventing a new technique. What are my three favorite ladles doing today? Kyoshi giggled. Okay, so not perfectly legible. Sounds like fun. Wish I could join you. Who knows, we can't reply right, Ranji asked. Dumplings, please. Any kind but leek. Enough, Ranji shouted. We're distracting him from his training, and you're late for work. She swept away the pebbles with her foot, less concerned with blazing new trails in the world of earthbending, and more with maintaining the daily schedule. Kyoshi plucked the jar off the invisible platform and followed Ranji back to the mansion, slipping slowly through the grass as, so as to not outpace her. If household duties were all that mattered to the firebender, then what would be the end of it? And nothing more would need to be said. Instead, she could feel Ranji's silence, compacting into a denser form inside her slender frame. They were halfway to the gate once it became too much to bear. It's pathetic, Ranji said, without turning around. The only way she could manage her disgust with Kyoshi was by not looking at her. The way they step on you. You serve the Avatar. Have some dignity. Kyoshi smiled. I was trying to de-escalate the situation, she murmured. You were going to let them hit you. I saw it. And don't you dare try and claim you were doing neutral jing or whatever earthbending hooey. Right on cue, Ranji had transformed from professional guardian of the Avatar, ready to scorch the bones of interlopers without flinching, into the teenage girl no older than Kyoshi, who easily lost her temper at her friends and was kind of a raging mother hen to boot. Speaking of your earthbending, you were shown up by a peasant. How have you not mastered the basics yet, by now? I've seen children in Yu Dao, bend rocks bigger than that jar. She and Ranji were friends, despite what it looked like. Back when the mansion was under construction, while Kyoshi was learning her duties inside the skeleton of the unfinished house, it had taken her weeks to figure out that the imperious girl, who acted like she was still in the junior corps of the fire army, only yelled at the people she let inside her shell. Everyone else was a scum who didn't warrant the effort. So the most efficient course of action would be to surprise the leader. Ayoma, was it? Alone somewhere and then we destroy her so messily that it sends a message to the others not to bother you anymore. Are you listening to me? Kyoshi had missed the greater part of the battle plan. She had been distracted by the collar of Ranji's armor, which had been used in the fall and needed to be straightened so it covered the delicate skin of her nape once more. But her answer was the same regardless. Why resort to violence? She said. She gently nudged the firebender in the small of the back with the jar. I have strong heroes like you to protect me. Ranji made a noise like she wanted to vomit. And that is the end of chapter 2. So, I will see you. So, let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. And make sure to go and comment a question you want me to answer for you. Like I said previously, my Instagram name is Cory_cat93, and my Twitter is Cory PowerCat @eCheyenne. So, get to it.